I'm gonna line it up, then I'll burn it down. I'm gonna make you feel like you're invincible when no one else is around. I'm gonna build you up, then I'll strike you down. 'Cause you're about to know it's nothing personal. Sometimes good people do bad things. Can you say that with me? Sometimes?
Sometimes.
People do bad things. Now, when I come to that next one, I want you to sing it with me. I'll help you. Ready? I'm gonna line it up, then I'll burn it down. I'm gonna make you feel like you're invincible when no one else is around. I'm gonna build you up, then I'll strike you down. 'Cause I want you to know it's nothing personal. Like this. Sometimes good people do bad things. Say that with us, come on. Sometimes good people do bad things. One more time. Sometimes good people do bad things. Oh. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Yes. Y'all make
here, though.
Evil sound like a lot of fun, you know?
Okay.
I think maybe our parents were right. Rock and roll is the devil, you know? I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like you start tapping your feet to the devil. Now, my message today is for those of us who are at times hostile, manipulative, and narcissistic. Now, if you're not one of those, that's okay. I still think there's something that you'll get out of this message. In part because who among us is not sometimes hostile, manipulative, and narcissistic? Don't we all have a little dictator inside? A tiny, dyspeptic, self-important Vladimir Putin? Or Slobodan Milosevic? Or Idi Amin? Just a wee little autocrat lurking inside of us, wanting to control others and have it our way. Or is it just me? Now, in which case, I want to apologize to anyone who thought you were coming to All Saints Church this morning. I think that's somewhere down Peoria a little ways. We're just All Souls here. If you're a saint, then you're in the wrong church. I am no way good enough to be the minister of All Saints. Now, my topic today is why good people do bad things. Our theme this month, as Barbara said, is good and evil. I realized that I could stand up here and I could talk about all the evil things we don't do, all the heinous crimes and wanton violence and that actual dictators and serial killers and hitmen and sociopaths do. And then we could all go home happily pointing our fingers at all those truly bad people who are not us. Instead, today, can we here just among us admit that it's not just other people who have hidden agendas and deeply held judgments and jealousies and prejudices and envies, addictions, and who rationalize their behaviors, and who by doing so add to the divisions and the struggles and the brokenness of the world. Again, for those of you for whom this doesn't apply, I apologize in advance. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. If we're going to be a source of light and love and unity in the world, the first step is recognizing where we are divided within ourselves. It's not that some are good and some of us are bad. We all have the capacity for doing good and doing harm. The old Cherokee story comes to mind about the grandfather who tells his grandson that there are two wolves in a battle within each of us. One wolf is good and one wolf is bad. And the grandson asks, which one wins? And his grandfather says, the one we feed. Good people do bad things because there are no purely good people. Even when we think we're doing something good, we sometimes find out later that we did harm. I remember one time when I spoke at a gun control forum some years ago. It was after a mass shooting in a school, and I was at full throttle of my self-righteousness about the need for better gun safety laws, as well as the need for better enforcement of such laws. And I went on with great passion and certitude about my position, and particularly about the need to keep guns out of the hands of those with mental illness. Now, what I failed to realize, and I discovered later, was that there were some folks in the audience who'd been touched by mental illness. And they were deeply offended about what I had said and felt that my position and how I had framed it would further marginalize them in society. In my righteousness, I had obscured their humanity. Now, I did not see how my words and opinions might further their oppression. What the grandfather doesn't tell his grandson in that Cherokee story is that we can't always tell which one of the wolves we're feeding. Sometimes when we think we're feeding the good wolf, it's really the bad wolf dressed in the good wolf's clothing. Christian missionaries have traumatized generations of indigenous children, not because they're particularly sadistic people, but because they thought they were doing what God wanted them to do. They believed they were bringing the light of God to the heathens, saving them from eternal damnation. More harm has been done by people who think they're doing good than will ever be done by people who are trying to do harm. The bloody and barbaric crusades were launched by Christians to spread truth and the love of God. The Ku Klux Klan was America's largest Christian terrorist organization. They didn't think of themselves as terrorists, but as defenders of the faith and nation. Just as most of those who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of this year seemed to think that they were fighting for a righteous cause. The men who flew planes into the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, presumably believed that they were following the will of Allah and were dealing a blow to the great Satan, America. Those banning books across America today think they're protecting children. Those creating bathroom bans think they're doing the right thing. Certainly those restricting women's reproductive rights think they're on the side of God's righteous cause. Much more damage has been done through good intentions than by those trying to do harm. And that's why we all need to be on guard. Not so much that we might be tempted to acts of blatant immorality and corruption. We're certainly capable of that too. But more likely, we'll be tempted by virtue and blinded to our own capacity for evil. It's been said that the devil's most successful ruse is to cloak himself in virtue. His favorite guises include patriotism, nationalism, freedom, tolerance, respectability, and piety. In fact, we are mistaken to imagine the devil as ugly, horned, and hairy because it's more likely to appear charming, agreeable, and flattering. When someone heard that I was going to be talking about why good people do bad things, she said, "Good, I need that sermon. It seems like everything I desire is either immoral, indecent, or fattening." But the real danger is not so much about being tempted by our base desires for sex, drugs, and Ben & Jerry's ice cream. It's the temptation to do something good. The devil doesn't go to crack houses, meth labs, and brothels looking for recruits. He already has those people. He comes to churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples. These are the places and people who are most ripe for the picking because they are the most blinded by their own righteousness and susceptible to the tantalating temptation to be good. Now, for everyone visiting today, I want to be clear that I don't believe in a literal devil. I'm speaking of devil as a metaphor. I'm making the point that most people who do harm and create problems do not do it because they're bad people trying to do harm to others. They do it because they think they're doing good. Now, what does that mean for you and me? Because, of course, we really are the good people. Right? I mean, we think we are. I mean, we better think we are, right? Or what else are we doing? But then again, so does everybody else. It counsels us to walk humbly and to be careful when we think that we feel certain of what is right. Too much damage has been done by people who are convinced that they're right. Sometimes there's not enough doubt, not enough questioning. Now, I realize some might find it odd that I, of all people, would counsel others to be humble with their opinions. I'm pretty well known for having strong and often controversial opinions publicly here in Oklahoma. I'll never shy away from advocating for what I think is right, and I'm not suggesting that anyone else do either. But for me, it's just as important to listen to what others think, to try to listen to their heart, to try to always see their humanity. And that's why I can't support cancel culture and why I believe strongly in freedom of speech. Most important, no matter what difference of opinion I have with someone else, I will try to never demonize or dehumanize the other person. Because once we start dehumanizing people, and I see it all the time, whether it's on Facebook or all kinds of social media, once we start dehumanizing people who we disagree with, there's no telling what will happen. They say that any society that burns books will eventually burn each other. And as you or I struggle against book bans and bathroom bills and the repression of reproductive rights, it's important that we keep our hearts and our minds open to the people who are on the other side. We don't have to agree with their position, but we have to see their humanity. We cannot compromise on dehumanizing others because as soon as we do, we are dehumanizing ourselves. Neuroscientific research shows that when we dehumanize others, the regions of our brain associated with disgust turn on, and the region associated with empathy turn off. And even though today in our service we bless the animals in our lives, it's not uncommon for people to compare members of another group to animals they detest. In the Nazi era, the film The Eternal Jew depicted Jews as rats. During the Rwanda genocide, Hutu officials called Tutsis cockroaches that needed to be cleaned out. We also know that once people effectively dehumanize each other, the cycle of violence and hatred can go on for generations. We've seen it in Northern Ireland, in Israel, the former Yugoslavia, Rwanda, and elsewhere. According to Brian Resnick, a writer for Vox, who wrote on this subject, he said experts told him that the best way to combat dehumanization is also frustratingly one of the hardest to accomplish. Simply getting to know people who are different from you. Resnick goes on, it's hard because we have many opportunities via the news and social media to get thin slices of exposure to unfamiliar groups. And that activates the us versus them program in our brains. And we have so few opportunities to do the hard work of breaking through those first impressions and getting to know the human soul inside people, especially those who think very differently than we do. According to Naur Katelli, a psychologist at Northwestern University who researches dehumanization, just as we have the mental capacity to dehumanize, we're equipped with the mental programs to forge trust and understanding. But it's up to us to turn them on. So what's required of us at All Souls and in our lives today is courageous love. That's what the world needs more than anything right now. It's a love that refuses to see any person as less than us. It's a love that's willing to listen to those who we disagree with an open heart. It's a love that's not afraid of ambiguity or doubt. Most of all, it means loving ourselves, even though we too can sometimes be hostile, manipulative, and narcissistic. Now, I know what you're thinking. Marlin, who do you think we are? Saints? No, I think I've established that's not the case. Courageous love doesn't just appear because we say that's what we're about. It takes effort. The first step on the journey, according to some people, one person I've been reading a lot is Biet Simpkin writes about this. It's called divided attention. We need to learn to be observers of our own thoughts and feelings. Otherwise, we're just on autopilot. She says, we're not the voice in our head, we're the one who hears the voice in our head. There's that voice, and then there's the one who thinks about, oh, is that what okay. Interesting that I had that thought. We're the one who's thinking about the thought. We're not the voice in our head, we're the one who hears the voice in our head. So begin to pay attention to what that voice is saying. And when you notice that it's your little dictator talking, rebel, like the people in Russia and Iran are doing right now. Don't take orders from your own shadow dictator. It's always tempting to act out our self-righteousness, especially when we feel certain that we're right. And it's common to live on autopilot if we don't take steps to divide our attention and really learn to pay attention to what's going on and make choices about what we want to do with what we think and what we feel. Courageous love requires more of us. And the world needs people with courageous love now more than ever. Meditation is a great way to cultivate this divided attention. And we have a meditation class every Wednesday night right now. It's free. If you're interested, 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights, come and learn how to meditate. You don't have to even know how to. You don't even have to ever done it before. Now, I don't know how I could stay sane in these days and times without a regular spiritual practice. I meditate, I pray, I read inspirational things and journal every morning. It's the only way that I can keep my head on straight, get up in the morning, hold my head up, and go into the world to face another day. People tell me all the time, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm in despair about the state of our nation and of our education and any number of things that we could be in despair about. But when I ask them what are they doing for a spiritual practice, and I inquire about that, they often say, I say, what are you doing to feed your soul regularly, intentionally? They often say, nothing. I don't really have anything. And I tell them that's the first step in the problem. We need to be drawing that positive energy from what's often called the vertical plane. There's this horizontal plane that we live on all the time, and we're always trying to draw energy from ice cream and sex and drugs and drinking, anything we can to like make me happy, make me feel good, get me up coffee. I love it. But we're always trying to get that energy. But there's this incredible source of energy that comes from what we call the vertical plane, the universe, that we are interconnected to everything that exists. The first star that exploded at the beginning of all time, that began all of this stuff. All that star stuff is in us. We're connected to all of it. We can draw on that energy and bring that into our everyday life to bring, and that's where courageous love comes from. You can't get it from sucking it out of someone else. You have to get it from your own internal source, which is interconnected with all that exists. So if you're not tending and nurturing your inner life, if you're not finding ways to draw from that vertical plane we call spirituality or the cosmos or the universe or our interconnectedness with all life, then you might think you want to be part of the solution, but you might very well be part of the problem. I'm going to end with this quote from Solzhenitsyn, the Russian writer, who says, "If only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, if it were only necessary to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them, but the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart?" Friends, learn to love your own divided, complicated self. And be careful who you choose as your enemies, because whoever they are, you will become like them. Remember, life puts before you many options. Choose love. Always choose love. Amen.
We invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing our closing hymn, number 131. We will now call Courageous Love Will Guide Us.